something happened in South Florida that the Cleveland Browns organization did not plan, did not sanction, and did not announce. And the moment a single photograph from a gym in the Sunshine State landed on the internet, the entire NFL world stopped what it was doing and stared. Deshaun Watson, the quarterback who cost Cleveland $230 million, who has played just 19 games since arriving in 2022, who missed the entire 2025 season rehabbing 2 torn Achilles tendons, who has been called a big swing and a miss by his own owner, was on a field in Florida throwing footballs to wide receiver Jeudy with the kind of crisp, confident, and purposeful energy that nobody in Cleveland has seen from this man in years. The photo hit social media, the video clips followed, and within hours, what had been a relatively settled conversation about the 2026 Cleveland Browns quarterback situation, Shadur Sanders, the incumbent, the young player who earned a Pro Bowl nod after taking over in Week 12 and going 3-4 as a rookie, exploded into one of the most chaotic, controversial, and emotionally loaded quarterback sagas in the entire NFL right now. And here is the part that nobody is fully prepared for. It is not getting quieter. It is getting louder. Every single day, this story adds another layer, another leak, another bombshell, another twist, and at the center of it all sits Shadur Sanders, a young man who has done almost everything right since his embarrassing 5th-round fall at the 2025 draft, and who now finds himself in genuine, documented, undeniable danger of losing the starting job before he ever truly got to own it. Stay right here, because what is happening in Berea, Ohio right now is unlike anything this franchise has been through, and that is saying something for a team that has had 42 different starting quarterbacks since 1999. Before we get to the Deshaun Watson-Jeudy chemistry that is shocking the NFL, before we get to the bombshell pole position report from one of the league's most connected insiders, and before we get to the Ty Simpson draft threat that could make Shedeur Sanders not just second on the depth chart, but potentially traded out of Cleveland entirely, we need to understand the full, complicated, layered history that brought this franchise to this exact moment. Because the Cleveland Browns quarterback problem is not new, it is not recent, it is generational, it is systemic, it is a 27-year-old catastrophe of roster decisions, coaching changes, draft misses, and organizational instability that has produced a collection of starting quarterbacks so long and so forgettable that most fans cannot name half of them. This is a franchise that has had a staggering 42 different starting quarterbacks since 1999. 42 in 27 years. That number is not just a statistic, it is an indictment. It is a story of perpetual failure at the most important position in professional sports, repeated year after year with the kind of institutional consistency that would be almost impressive if it weren't so deeply, genuinely, heartbreakingly sad. The Deshaun Watson chapter of this story began with the most aggressive and expensive commitment to a single quarterback in NFL history, and then turned into the most public, most expensive, most humiliating failure in the history of the franchise. In 3 seasons with Cleveland, Watson has completed 61.2% of his passes for 3,365 yards, 19 touchdowns, and 12 interceptions across 19 starts, posting an 80.7 passer rating. 80.7 for a player who received $230 million in fully guaranteed money, for a player the Browns gave up 3 first-round picks, a third-round pick, and 4 fourth-round picks to acquire, for a player who was supposed to be the franchise's generational answer at quarterback, and instead became the most expensive anchor in NFL history. Owner Jimmy Haslam himself acknowledged the disaster last year, saying the organization gave up a lot of draft picks to get him and now had to dig ourselves out of that hole. Those are not the words of a man who believes in his quarterback. Those are the words of a man in crisis, a man who spent franchise-altering capital on a bet that completely, utterly, spectacularly did not pay off.
And then came the 2025 season. Or rather the season that Watson did not play at all. After suffering a torn Achilles in October 2024, Watson underwent surgery and began the long road of recovery that NFL players and medical professionals universally described as one of the most grueling rehabilitation processes in professional sports. Then, in what seemed almost impossible, the injury recurred. He tore it again. Watson has not played a game since October 2024 due to a twice-torn right Achilles tendon. Sportskita. 2 Achilles surgeries, back-to-back, for a quarterback whose entire value is built on his ability to extend plays, escape pressure, and use his athleticism to keep drives alive when the pocket collapses. The Achilles, the tendon that governs explosive movement, change of direction, and the sudden burst of acceleration that separates NFL quarterbacks from practice squad players, had been torn, twice, in the same leg, in the span of a single calendar year. While Watson was in rehab, something unexpected happened in Cleveland. A 5th-round pick, the quarterback the entire NFL had passed on, the player projected to go in the top 3 who fell to 144th amid a pre-draft controversy that divided the sports world, took over the Browns' offense and showed something real. Shedeur Sanders stepped in during Week 12 when Dillon Gabriel went down with a concussion, and over the next 7 games, against NFL defenses, under NFL pressure, with minimal offensive weapons around him, he produced 1,400 passing yards, 7 touchdowns, and went 3-4. He earned a Pro Bowl replacement nod for his performance, and head coach Todd Monken described what he saw as elite playmaking ability, the kind that showed up on tape from college and translated directly to the professional game, even in the most chaotic circumstances. The mirror. The flashes were undeniable. The talent was real. The arm was legitimate. And the Browns, for the first time in what felt like forever, had a young quarterback under center who made people believe, even briefly, that the carousel might finally have found someone worth keeping on it. But professional football does not run on momentum and emotional narrative. It runs on money, contracts, political dynamics, and the decisions of powerful men who are often more influenced by sunk cost fallacy than by football logic. And the most powerful man in the Browns organization, owner Jimmy Haslam, just could not help himself. At the NFL owners' meetings in Phoenix on Monday, Haslam offered Deshaun Watson something he rarely gets in Cleveland anymore: the benefit of the doubt. Deshaun has a great chance, a fresh start, an offensive-minded coach who has, in his past, been able to work with all kinds of different quarterbacks and make them successful, Haslam said. Deshaun has a great chance to do that now. We talked to him the other day, and he said he weighs the least he has in several years. He is in great shape. He'll be in Cleveland on April 7th when we start OTAs. Heavy sports. Stop right there. Let that statement breathe for a moment. The same owner who 1 year ago called the Watson trade a big swing and a miss, who publicly acknowledged that his franchise paid a king's ransom and received almost nothing in return, was now at the NFL owners' meetings telling reporters that Deshaun Watson has a great chance, that he weighs the least he has in several years, that he is in great shape. Those are not the words of a man gracefully transitioning away from a failed investment. Those are the words of a man trying to convince himself and everyone around him that the $230 million did not all go to waste, that there is still a story worth believing in, that Deshaun Watson, 30 years old, 2 torn Achilles surgeries, 19 games played in 3 Cleveland seasons, and 80.7 passer rating, can somehow become the quarterback that justifies everything this franchise sacrificed to get him. And then the photo appeared. Jerry Jeudy's Instagram story. South Florida. 2 men in workout gear. Deshaun Watson and his favorite receiving target. The 2 of them in a gym in Florida before a throwing session, building the kind of chemistry and timing that you can only develop by putting in hours together away from the team facility, away from the coaches, away from the scheduled program, in the kind of private, personal, self-motivated environment that tells you something genuine about what a player actually believes about his own future. According to Browns insider Mary Kay Cabot of Cleveland.com, those sessions are not new. Watson and Jeudy have been getting together periodically since mid-February, as Watson focuses on conditioning and sharpening his timing with his #1 receiving target. Heavy sports. Since mid-February.
For almost 2 full months, Deshaun Watson has been working quietly, methodically, and persistently in South Florida, staying in shape, throwing footballs, building his connection with Jeudy in a way that nobody was paying attention to until that one Instagram story changed everything. The internet exploded. The reaction split immediately and decisively into 2 very different emotional camps. On one side, the Watson believers, the people who point to his 2020 season with the Houston Texans when he was the second-best quarterback in the NFL, who argue that 2 Achilles surgeries and a year of complete rest might have actually reset and recharged a body that had been playing hurt for years, who want to believe that the right coaching staff and the right system can unlock the Watson that everyone paid all that money to acquire. One fan wrote approvingly, "The owner of the Browns organization must be thrilled to know his organization and team get so much attention." Sportskeeda. On the other side, the skeptics, the people who have watched Watson fail in Cleveland for 3 years, who look at 80.7 passer rating and 19 games played and 2 torn Achilles and cannot find any rational reason for hope. "Perfect. Watson can't throw and Jeudy can't catch," one fan wrote bluntly. "Right after Monken spoke yesterday, Jerry is the worst type of person. Trade him ASAP," another said. "I honestly don't think our WR room would be any worse if they cut Jeudy tomorrow," a third added. Sportskeeda. The division is total. The passion is real. And right in the middle of it, Shadur Sanders is watching all of this unfold, watching his starting job, which he earned and which he believed was his, being actively challenged from multiple directions simultaneously.
Because here is where the story of Watson and Jeudy's chemistry sessions transforms from an interesting subplot into an existential threat to Sanders' Cleveland career. NFL Network's Mike Garafolo, one of the most connected and reliable NFL insiders in the business, went on air and said something that sent shockwaves through every football community in the country. Garafolo said on Good Morning Football, "Does Deshaun Watson have a chance to be the Browns starter in 2026? Yes, he does, and in my opinion, he's got a great shot. In fact, at this point, if Deshaun Watson is the starter Week 1 for the Cleveland Browns, this guy right here is not going to be surprised." Essentially sports. Not gonna be surprised. Those words, from someone with Garafolo's track record of accuracy on NFL insider information, are not casual commentary. They are a signal. They reflect something that is being communicated inside the Browns organization to people close to the situation, that Watson is the front runner, that despite everything, the record, the injuries, the year off, the Achilles surgeries, the machine inside Berea is tilted, at least at this moment, toward giving the veteran quarterback one more chance to prove that $230 million worth of belief was not entirely misplaced. Head coach Todd Monken, asked directly at the NFL owners' meetings about how he would approach distributing quarterback reps in the offseason program, gave an answer that should make every Shedeur Sanders fan deeply uncomfortable. Monken said the reps would not be divided equally, that someone would get the bulk, and that how things ended last year will be a factor. Heavy sports. How things ended last year. Watson did not play last year. Sanders started the final 7 games. If how things ended last year is a factor, shouldn't that automatically favor Sanders, the player who was actually on the field? But the careful, deliberately ambiguous wording of Monken's statement tells a different story. He was not ready to state that Shadur Sanders will start out as QB1. That hedging, that refusal to simply confirm the obvious, that the player who ended the previous season as starter has earned the presumptive right to begin the next season as QB1, is the most telling thing Monken said at those meetings. It says that the coaching staff has not yet made up its mind, that Watson's return to full health, his weight loss, his private workouts with Jeudy, his enthusiasm in conversations with the new coaching staff, all of it is being weighed against Sanders' 7-game sample in real time. And then came the piece of the story that truly put Shadur Sanders in danger. Not the Watson chemistry sessions, not Garafolo's insider report, not Haslam's renewed backing for the veteran. The piece that genuinely threatens to upend everything is sitting in the 2026 NFL Draft at pick number 6, and his name is Ty Simpson. Browns GM Andrew Berry, speaking to local media, offered notable and carefully chosen praise for Alabama quarterback Ty Simpson, saying the Alabama product had a bright future in the league, while declining to state how interested the Browns were in him. Berry also reiterated that it was wholly realistic to add another young signal caller to the room to compete for the starting role. Pro Football Network. Wholly realistic. That is not a throwaway comment from a general manager preparing for the NFL Draft. That is a man publicly preparing the fan base, the roster, and the organization for the possibility that the 6th overall pick in the 2026 NFL Draft, a pick that most analysts assumed would go toward a wide receiver or left tackle, could be used on a quarterback. A quarterback who would immediately challenge both Deshaun Watson and Shedeur Sanders for the starting job, who would be the organization's first-round quarterback investment in years, and whose presence would make the Browns' quarterback room the most chaotic and soap-operatic in the entire NFL. The debate raging in Cleveland centers on exactly this three-way dilemma: build around Sanders, hope for a miracle return to form from Watson, or take a massive swing on a first-round rookie. Pro Football Network. And Browns insider Mary Kay Cabot, who has covered this franchise for 3.5 decades and has seen every version of this carousel, came out with a forceful and surprising public position. Cabot said on 92.3 The Fan, "I would actually take a chance on Ty Simpson. If you're not 100% sure about a player at another position, then why not take a chance on a QB? I like a lot of what I've seen in those 15 games. Pro Football Network. The woman who knows the Browns better than almost any journalist alive is publicly advocating for drafting Ty Simpson at number 6 overall. That is not a fringe opinion from an outsider. That is an informed, experienced, deeply credentialed football observer saying out loud what the most difficult question facing this franchise actually is. Are you sure enough about Shadur Sanders to pass on a first-round quarterback prospect who could potentially solve this position for the next decade?"
Simpson threw for 3,567 yards, 28 touchdowns, and only 5 interceptions last season at Alabama, while completing 64.5% of his passes, earning strong grades from multiple evaluators and generating genuine buzz as the second-best quarterback in the 2026 class. Pro Football Network, his connection to Todd Monken is personal and documented. Simpson's father, Jason Simpson, and head coach Todd Monken go way back. Monken was the head coach at Southern Miss, where Jason was an alum, and the two have maintained a relationship that has carried over into Monken's conversations with the son. Simpson himself said, "If I had the opportunity to play for the Browns, it would be a dream come true. I think I'd be in great hands with the team that they have and the organization, and Coach Monken, what he does with the quarterbacks and the offense is super quarterback friendly." Essentially sports a personal connection, a professional endorsement, a father who knows the head coach, and a son who is openly expressing his desire to play in Cleveland. In the NFL's information ecosystem, where personal relationships and comfort levels drive more decisions than the public ever fully appreciates, that kind of connection matters in ways that are impossible to quantify, but undeniable in their effect. The most explosive scenario, the one that would fundamentally change the entire trajectory of Shadur Sanders' career, involves the Browns drafting Ty Simpson with their first-round pick at number 6 and then trading Sanders during that same draft weekend. Last word on NFL, the Browns take Simpson. Sanders becomes surplus, and the trade call goes to a team, potentially the Dallas Cowboys, potentially the Carolina Panthers, potentially the Indianapolis Colts, that needs a young quarterback with genuine NFL tools and is willing to give Cleveland something of value in return for a player they've essentially moved on from.
The Cowboys specifically have been mentioned as a potential landing spot, with one report noting that it would be a dream come true for Deion Sanders to see his son in a Dallas Cowboys uniform, and that Jerry Jones, who loves nothing more than a high-profile, marketable acquisition, would certainly be interested in what Shedeur could bring to America's team. Last word on NFL. Is that scenario likely? Not necessarily. Is it possible? Absolutely and undeniably yes. And the fact that it is being reported, analyzed, and discussed by credible journalists and insiders means that someone inside the Browns building has at least considered it. You do not end up in the national sports media cycle without someone floating the idea from somewhere with access to the organization's thinking. Pro Football Focus rated 38 quarterbacks last season, and Shadur Sanders ranked 38th. Dylan Gabriel ranked 37th, and Deshaun Watson's most recent season of action in 2024 produced a 51.1 score, finishing 39th among quarterbacks. Heavy sports. Those numbers are brutal. They represent a quarterback room that, by the metrics, was the worst in professional football. The Browns are not operating from a position of strength at this position. They are operating from a position of genuine crisis. The kind of crisis that makes normally conservative front offices willing to consider moves that would be considered radical in any other context. Drafting a quarterback at number 6 overall would be radical for a franchise with Sanders already in the building. Trading Sanders during the draft would be extraordinary for a player who just earned a Pro Bowl nod. But this is the Cleveland Browns, a franchise that has made extraordinary decisions at quarterback for 27 consecutive years, and not a single one of them has worked. The fan reaction to all of this is predictably volcanic. Cleveland analyst Ken Carman laid out the situation with unapologetic clarity. Shedeur has to go out there and just be abominable to me in OTAs for Deshaun Watson to win this job. If Watson turns this football team into a 12 or 13 win team, then I can't say anything to the guy. But I think a lot of people think pigs will fly before that actually happens. Pro Football Network. Abominable. That is the bar Watson's most ardent skeptic has set for Sanders to lose the job. Sanders would have to be completely, inexcusably, historically bad in OTAs for Watson to win the starting role. And yet, Garafolo, who has sources inside NFL organizations across the league, is saying Watson is in pole position. Those two assessments are not compatible. They cannot both be correct. And the gap between them is the exact size of the chaos currently consuming the Cleveland Browns quarterback situation from the inside.
What does Shedeur Sanders do in the face of all of this? He does what he has always done when the NFL tries to write a story for him that he refuses to accept. New coach Todd Monken, when asked about Sanders' presence during the offseason, called it refreshing, noting that the quarterback understands exactly where he is and where he wants to get to. Monken specifically pointed out the contrast. Sanders has been consistently inside the building all offseason, while other quarterbacks in the competition have not been. Heavy sports, Sanders is in the facility. Watson is in Florida with Jeudy on Instagram. The commitment gap, the raw, visible, documented gap in work ethic and organizational presence between the incumbent second-year quarterback and the veteran who has to come back from 2 Achilles surgeries should be the only story. But in an organization with this much financial sunk cost tied to Watson, with an owner who cannot stop himself from publicly backing the most expensive mistake in franchise history, and with a general manager who is wholly realistic about adding yet another quarterback to the room, the logic of the situation keeps getting overridden by the politics of it. NFL Network's Cameron Wolfe reported that the Browns are more likely to use their 2 first-round picks at 6 and 24 overall on wide receiver and left tackle rather than quarterback, suggesting the organization may wait another year on the position and let Watson and Sanders battle it out, with new head coach Todd Monken overseeing the competition. Bleacher Report.
If that is indeed the path Cleveland takes, then the starting job competition becomes the most important football development in the entire AFC North this summer, more important than any free agency signing, any draft pick, any scheme installation, because whoever emerges from that competition as QB1 will determine not just whether the Cleveland Browns are playoff worthy in 2026, but whether this franchise can finally, after 27 years and 42 different starting quarterbacks, close the book on the carousel and begin to build something sustainable. The chemistry clips from Florida are real. Watson and Jeudy have been working. The arm appears to be intact. The weight loss is documented. The motivation is genuine, because Watson understands, perhaps better than anyone, that this is his last legitimate opportunity. The franchise will not survive another failed quarterback investment of this magnitude. The fan base will not absorb another 2 or 3 seasons of losing behind a quarterback who was supposed to be the answer and turned out to be another question. Watson completed 63.4% of his passes across his 7 starts in 2024, the last time he played football, before the Achilles gave out. He posted a 1-6 record. He threw 5 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. Pro Football Network. Those are not the numbers of the second-best quarterback in the NFL, which is what he was in 2020. They are the numbers of a player whose body had been betraying him for years before the catastrophic Achilles injuries finally forced a reset. Can a reset work? Can 2 full Achilles surgeries, a year of complete rest, dedicated conditioning work, weight loss to levels he has not seen in years, and the fresh start of a brand new coaching relationship with Todd Monken, a man who turned Lamar Jackson into a 2-time MVP, actually produce a version of Deshaun Watson that resembles the talent everyone paid to see? That is the football question. And the honest answer is, nobody knows. Not Garafolo, not Haslam, not Monken, not even Watson himself, until he takes snaps under pressure in a real NFL game, can know whether those Achilles tendons will hold up and whether the explosiveness and timing and instincts that made him elite are truly still there. Haslam, trying to frame the situation with optimism at the owners' meetings, reached for a historical analogy. There's a lot of quarterbacks who, it seems to be the theme in the NFL, who either started, did not start well, and take the Super Bowl route. What a great story that is for Sam Darnold. Deshaun started great, and the year before we signed him, he was the second-best quarterback in the NFL. And then the suspension and the injuries and all that piled up. Can he come back from that? Yardbarker, can he come back from that? That is the question at the heart of everything happening in Cleveland right now. And the fact that the owner of the franchise is publicly asking that question out loud to reporters at the NFL's annual owners' meetings, rather than simply stating that the answer is yes, tells you everything you need to know about just how uncertain this situation truly is. Shedeur Sanders is in danger. Real, documented, multi-front danger. Watson's private Florida workouts and the chemistry sessions with Jeudy are happening. Garafolo's pole position report is out there. Haslam's renewed backing of Watson is a matter of public record. The Ty Simpson threat at pick 6 is real and being actively discussed by people with access to the organization. And Todd Monken, the head coach who praised Sanders' elite playmaking ability and called his facility presence refreshing, was also the man who refused to confirm that Sanders would receive the bulk of OTA reps, who said reps would not be divided equally, and who pointedly declined to anoint the incumbent starter as QB1 going into the most important offseason of his young career.
None of this means Shedeur Sanders is going to lose his job. The football logic still strongly favors him. He was the one on the field. He was the one who earned the Pro Bowl nod. He was the one whose head coach called his ability elite. He was the one inside the facility all winter, while Watson was throwing to Jeudy on Instagram. But the Cleveland Browns have never, in 27 years and 42 quarterbacks, made the decision that the football logic pointed toward. They have always found a way to complicate what should have been simple,
to second-guess what should have been obvious, and to introduce chaos where clarity was desperately needed. And right now, in April of 2026, with OTAs starting on April 7th and the draft 3 weeks away and the entire NFL watching, the chaos is here. The drama is exploding, and Shedeur Sanders, the fifth-round pick who was supposed to finally be the answer in Cleveland, is fighting for his professional life against a $230 million mistake, a first-round draft prospect with a personal connection to the new head coach, and an owner who simply cannot stop himself from believing that this time, it will be different. It never is. Until it is. And that uncertainty is exactly why this story is the most compelling, most maddening, and most deeply human drama in the entire NFL right now. This video is based on publicly available reports, official statements from the Cleveland Browns organization, credible sports journalism from ESPN, NFL Network, Cleveland.com, and Pro Football Network, and ongoing 2026 NFL offseason developments. All information reflects reporting available as of April 4, 2026. This content is for entertainment and informational purposes only.